If I get this coast even right.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy.
Do not adjust your dial. The following is a new program produced in Los Alamos.
Hi, I'm Natalie Portman on the set of Brothers. What's up, Los Alamos?
It's time for What's Up Los Alamos. On this show, Karen Kendall interviews Los Alamos County Open Space Specialist Craig Martin. An infomercial for binoculars. The municipal building implosion sale.
Hi, I'm Karen Kendall, and today we're talking with Craig Martin, Open Space Specialist for Los Alamos County. Hi, Craig.
Good morning.
Craig is the author of 17 books. He's an outdoor enthusiast, a fly fisherman, a volunteer coordinator, husband, father, and saxophone player, just to name a few of his many interests. Thank you for being with us. To start off, how long have you lived in Los Alamos?
Oh, I hate to admit it, but it's been 20 years now. Came in 1987 during a snowstorm out of Tucson. So it was quite a shock to come here and all of a sudden dealing with snow again after 6 years in Tucson. But we learned within 2 weeks that you had to have a pair of cross-country skis to survive the winter in Los Alamos. That was back when it used to snow a lot. And that was the start of the outdoor activity thing in the northern New Mexico area.
Excellent. What brought you here besides the snow?
Well, it wasn't the snow that brought us here. It was actually the fly fishing. My wife had just finished graduate school. That's why we were in Tucson. We were looking for a place to settle. She had done a research assistantship here in Los Alamos during the summer, and that's when I learned how to fly fish. And I said, well, if we have a choice, let's try Los Alamos. And we came here with the radical idea that we had a 1-year-old, and Mom was going to go to work, and Dad didn't have a job. So what was Dad going to do? Well, Dad stayed home with the kid, and we did that for 15 years. I was the stay-at-home parent in our family and brought the kids up with somebody around all the time, transporting them here and there and doing the usual mother thing. But there's a lot of guys that say, oh, it sounds like a great job to stay home with your kids, but I'm not sure they would take it as seriously as I did. I mean, I really dove right in, went to play groups, had to listen to all the women talk, which was usually okay, but I tried to steer the conversation away as often as I could. But it's what gave the kids their friends and actually gave me my friends. I mean, that group of women helped me survive as a stay-at-home parent.
That's great. Tell us about growing up in Philadelphia.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia and always was interested in the outdoors. So my father was a veteran of World War II and had spent many nights sleeping on the ground and said that he would never go camping, he would never sleep in a tent again. So it was Boy Scouts that got me outside and doing things and learning some outdoor skills. And I think that's what made it so that once I got the chance to move to a place that I wanted to, I was out west within 2 weeks.
Excellent. Now, in 2000, you received the Distinguished Service Award from the Boy Scouts. What is that award for?
Let's see, in 2000, that was a long time ago. I was involved as a den leader and a committee chair with the Cub Scouts at that time. So my den started out with 12 boys, of which I think 4 at this point have Eagle Scout awards.
Great.
My son not being one of them.
But you were a den leader then?
Yes.
Okay. And you started your association with the Boy Scouts when you were?
Well, when I was 12 years old? Oh, probably when I was 8 years old. Went through scouting myself, hit the age of 16 and discovered girls, and that was the end of that. My son followed in my footsteps, went through 16 and then went off on his own way. So it was nice to come back to scouting as an adult leader because I know it's a controversial group, but I really believe that what they do for boys in teaching them outdoor skills is something that's really lacking in the way we're put together as a society today.
You graduated from the University of Delaware, and what did you major in?
It was biological science. Took me 7 years to get through. I went 2.5 years, quit for 4 years, and went back and finished up. It was the 70s, and I was still trying to find myself, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it. And learned how to be a framing carpenter in the middle of all that, and decided, well, when I'm 50, I don't think I want to do this. And I was right, because I'm over that now, and I don't think I could have survived trying to do that kind of physical work. Of course, now I'm out there burning things, and it's probably just as physical. That's another issue.
Speaking of which, what is an open space specialist?
That's a really tough question. The original idea was to find somebody who could pull together the post-fire restoration efforts, to maintain the county trail system, and to come up with an open space management plan for the county of Los Alamos. The easy part is doing trail work, getting volunteers out there doing that. The hard part is the open space planning. Trying to reconcile what we value here in Los Alamos is why a lot of us live here, the outdoors, having a trail out of the back door. Well, I call it neighborhood open space. Everybody in town is within a 5-minute walk of a piece of open space, and that's the way I like it. That's the way I think a lot of folks that live here like it. Balancing that with the push for economic development in Los Alamos is a challenge. And I think we can have the best of both worlds. I think some economic development here in town would be a great thing, but I just want to make sure that it's done properly. So that's the challenging part of the job now. Aside from, halfway through this, the county said, well, since you've got this going, why don't you take over the fuel mitigation project?
Yes.
And it'll only be 10% of your time. Well, it's actually about 70% of my time, especially in the winter. And that's where we're at now.
You're working with the fire department and Santa Fe Forest Service on the slash burning, and how much has been cleared so far?
Since we took care of the project, since I took over the project, which was 2 or 3 years ago, the mechanical thinning had been done. They did 1,000 acres of going in with what I call tree eating machines, and reducing the number of trees that were standing in the forest, and then pulled out. And that was the hard part. That was the expensive part. Then comes the really hard work part, which is going out there and taking what's left. And most of that was stuff that was laying on the ground, dead and down fuel. A lot of that stuff's been sitting there for 100 years. So what we're doing is we're trying to correct 100 years of fuel buildup, because in the old days, when the fire used to come through every 7 to 10 years, most of that stuff would burn up on a regular basis, release nutrients back in the soil. So I feel really bad on burn days because we make the whole town smoky, and it's it's not fun for me, and I'm always in the thick of it. I don't want anybody to have to breathe smoke if I'm not doing it worse. But it's something that has to be done. We have to get this accomplished.
How significant is the ongoing fire threat to the county?
I know that we think, well, we've done it once, we don't have to worry about it again, but we burned the edge of town, the western and the northern edge of town. Right now, we're dealing with the stuff that's in the center part of town, which was not burned in Cerro Grande and still had a normal stand of ponderosa pine in a healthy situation has 50 to 100 trees per acre. Or some of the places we had in the middle of town, right adjacent to people's houses, had 4,000 trees per acre. Wow. So obviously a big fuel problem. What we've done now is, since the mechanical treatment part has ended, we've maintained a steady program, and we've retreated about 250 acres with fire, which means what we're doing in parts that are far away from town right now are actually broadcast burning, which is putting fire on the ground, just trying to burn up the grasses and the dead and down wood. And then in the middle of town, what we're doing is piling all of the fuel accumulation, and we're talking maybe 20 tons of fuel per acre, we can get about 15 tons of that into piles and then burn the piles when it's safe to do so, which is the middle of winter. The issue with that is atmospheric conditions in winter are usually have an inversion, so the smoke rises to a certain point and it just stays there, and that's why we all breathe smoke. But the alternative is burn in the spring when ventilation is way better, but there's no way I'm going to make sure that the Forest Service guys are not even thinking about that,
Too
and they're
risky.
not.